Okay. Hi, Marco.
Hey,
How was your weekend?
it was good. It was warm, very close to here. But other than that, it was nice and smooth. How about yours?
Mine was kind of hectic because my kids wanted me to walk a lot. So yeah, so we walked like I don't know how long today. We walked for like 2 hours, and
Dang.
by the time I got home, I didn't want to do anything. And my son said, "Oh, you need the exercise, Mom." I'm like, "Okay, thank you." So we decided to go to a nature center, and that was pretty fun with the stroller pushing up the hill. So, but anyway, it was all good. So
How
this
old is your
topic,
youngest one?
do what?
How old is your youngest one?
She's 5. So, and
Uh,
she's got a really bad hip. It's like a turn hip. So she, when she walks, she in toes, and so she loses her balance, especially going downhill and going uphill. So I have to push her in a stroller a lot because she gets tired after walking so many miles. Um,
mhm.
so it was a pain getting up the hill. And then my son
Yeah.
ended up letting her go down the hill by herself in the stroller, and I'm chasing her, and she's almost going through the field. I'm like, no.
Wow.
Yeah, almost had a heart attack. Yeah, me know what's going to feel. Okay. So this topic that we're talking about is saying goodbye, whether it is a loved one that passed on or who is dying, or a loved one that you had a conflict issue with, that you do not talk to them anymore and you had to say goodbye. So hopefully it won't be too much of a tearjerker. And so, but anyway, the first thing that I want to talk about is, has anybody had a loved one that had to say goodbye, if they were dying from something or had passed on unexpectedly? Mommy,
Guess I'm ki- I guess I'm kind of dealing with that situation now. In March, my great grandfather passed away unexpectedly, and then 2 weeks after he passed away, my great grandmother, his wife, was diagnosed with cancer. So it's like they're both really old, so we knew it was happening, but none of us is like ready, and now we're trying to like prepare for the worst with my great grandmother.
mm,
So
sorry to hear that. That's a lot of going along, lot to deal with. Did you say 3 of them passed away?
um, no, my great grandmother,
Uh,
and then I mean my great grandfather passed, and then now my great grandmother, she has cancer and it's really bad.
oh
So
boy.
they're right now.
Do you know what stage?
Um, no, she didn't tell us. We found out by because we went over her house to just check
Hmm.
on her, and the nurse kind of slipped it. So other than that, she's not telling us what's going on. She's like a really proud person.
All right, leave.
She's
I'm
great.
sorry. I'm gonna shoo her out real quick. All right, go. All right, don't bother me no more. Sorry about that. Okay. Anybody else? You guys can also talk about any conflict issues that you had to say goodbye to them, or who, if you had anybody that passed on.
Um, well, my aunt, a week and 2 days ago, she passed away. I guess like from what my cousin was saying was that for the last couple of days she kept like fainting and like had hard trouble breathing, and then Sunday the ambulance come and pick her up, and I guess my cousin was just waiting, you know, in a couple hours her mom would be out. But the call that she got was from the doctor saying that they tried everything that she could and that she passed away. So we're still dealing with that now, because there's some issues where my aunt had some money left in like the trailer, and my
Mhm.
cousin and I found it, and it was $2,000, which
Oh,
should
wow.
have covered the cremation. Turns out my cousin never paid for the cremation. My aunt is still at the place thingy,
Mm.
and there's no more money. So,
So you guys going to use that money?
well, there is no money. My cousin spent it on who knows what. So now
Oh,
we
wow.
have to, and we can't do anything. Like my mom has tried calling the place where she's at now, and they're like, well, we can't give you any information until my cousin approves, like, you know, like HIPAA, even though we're family, we're not her next of kin. So
So I bet that's pretty stressful.
mostly stressful, like on my mother. She's like the oldest of all the kiddos,
Mhm.
or all her like brothers and sisters, and she's the one that basically raised them all.
Mhm.
So she's the one that always takes up on all like the stress,
Mhm.
even if it's unnecessary stress.
Anybody else? Okay, just go.
Robin, I think you need to accept Darlene into the meeting.
Oh, I didn't see her. Thank you. There we go. Sorry, Darlene.
So she's still connecting to audio.
Yeah, it says connecting.
Should I just wait for her to pop in and then do my
Yeah.
part? Or?
Baby,
Lily, you need to go. Wonder if she's having trouble connecting.
Maybe she like left and then I don't know. Oh, technical issues.
Should I do my part and then we'll talk to her when she comes in?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So regarding the
There she is.
item,
Hi, Darlene. Okay, go. Okay. So, Darlene, what we're talking about with this topic is saying goodbye to like a loved one that had passed on or who is dying, or if you had any conflict issues, and then you had to say goodbye to someone due to conflict.
Okay.
Here, go talk to her.
yeah.
So anybody has anything to say about if they had anybody that dealt with someone that passed away or
So it was a while back. I think it would have had to been, I don't know, maybe like 6 or 7 years ago, but like the situation was pretty crazy. So my grandpa, him and I were pretty close, and he got my sophomore year of college, he got diagnosed with stage 4 lung cancer.
mm,
that one didn't really come as a surprise with how much he smoked. But the hard part was when, because I went away to school, so when I came home for Thanksgiving break or Christmas break, I didn't know if that was the last time I would see him. So it basically I had to say goodbye twice. Um, and it was hard because he didn't even know where he was. Like he thought he was in a hotel room, and he kept calling me my sister's name because we look exactly alike, but I could tell when he was talking to me. And then I think 2 months after Christmas break, or like a month after that, I had shoulder surgery, and he passed away the day after that. And I was out, obviously in Kansas, and he was here in Nevada. So it was kind of weird because I said my goodbyes, but it was hard to do it twice because you never know. And then when it hits you that, I wasn't there, yeah, that part was kind of hard.
Yeah, it is pretty hard when you're not there when someone does leave, that passes, especially if you're close to someone, versus like if you were there saying goodbye before they do pass on.
Yeah. It was sweet though because he kept like with how like out of it he was that whole day I had my surgery. He kept asking my mom and was like, "Is Erica out yet? Is she out of surgery? Is she out of surgery?" And like that was like, how they say like with a lot of cancer patients that they have that one good day. If
Hmm.
that just happened to be his like one last good day.
Right. Because I've noticed that the day before, even though that you don't know that they're close to dying, that they're like up and moving around, and then the next day it's like, whoa, they're not here. That's happened to me with my mom 4 years ago. um, she had diabetes, and I was taking care of her since 2008, and she died in 2014. And we thought she was getting better, and she kept on saying to everybody that she loved everybody and that she's not going to make it for the weekend. And we're like, oh, you got a year left, or you got 2 years left. And the night before, she was up moving around in her wheelchair and just happy as can be and laughing at jokes and watching TV. And her last meal was like a Big Mac from McDonald's. That's what she wanted me to go get, and she ate that. And then the next thing I knew that she wasn't responding. I mean, she was still there, but she wasn't responding. Like she was in like kind of like a coma type thing. So I called hospice because we had just gotten the hospice in just to help around the house if we needed it. And within an hour, she was gone, and they did put her on a 12-hour watch, and they didn't realize that she was actually dying, and they left, and within that hour she had passed away, and unexpectedly. So it's just like it was a shocker for me and shocker for everybody, and it was my two kids at home and me, and nobody else got to see her and say goodbye. And I didn't even really get to say goodbye to her because I had sat down in the living room and was eating lunch, and all of a sudden I don't know if you guys felt like a presence, like if someone's touching you and whispering in your ear and saying go check on someone, you like your loved one. And it was weird because I had goosebumps and my hair on my arm was standing up, and I had this whisper in my ear saying go check on your mother. And I went to go check on her, and she was gone. And it was just weird because I've never felt that. And I think it was God, or the touch of God, or the touch of an angel that was telling me. And I don't know if you guys had any experience with that. So, but it was hard too, losing her, especially when I didn't get to say goodbye. Same thing with you, Erica. Anybody else had anything happen? Marco?
Yeah, so mine was about a year ago. One of my buddies that I ride with,
Do you have your mic up? Because I can't hardly hear you.
Yeah, I couldn't hear either.
Oh, really?
Yeah, we can't hardly hear you.
Mommy,
How do I change my microphone settings?
Right. You gotta leave. You gotta leave.
Can you hear me now?
A little
Yeah.
bit.
Yeah, a little better.
Yeah, it's a little bit better.
I hear you.
Okay. My experience was with one of my buddies that I used to ride with. He unexpectedly got like cancer everywhere in his body,
Mm.
and it was one of those times where I decided like I could just come by, see how he's doing, and he seemed like he was getting better, but then it was just kind of, it still felt a little weird. So we talked, and the goodbye was kind of like, we just said, okay, like I'll see you next time. We'll go ride together. So just get better, and then kind of like we'll go ride next week or something.
Mhm.
And then he passed away the next day.
Wow. Yeah.
you too.
My daughter does not want to leave the room, so I'm sorry.
You too.
Lily, you need to leave. I'm sorry. Just a minute. Come on.
We got you too.
Okay. Go. Shut the door. All right. Kind of hard to
You
have no
too.
distractions without having kids coming in the room.
You too.
Yeah, it's how did you feel when you realized that he was gone after the next day?
That was
You too.
threw me off because I didn't really expect it, but
Yeah,
You too.
I think
Yeah.
when something like that happens, all of us don't expect that. You know, like I know that the ones that are dying or that know they are, they feel it, but then people around them, they're like, oh, you're not, you know, and we don't even really expect it until it actually happens. And I think that's normal, you know, everybody, you know, they don't expect it. So, anybody else?
You too.
Chantel, Darlene?
I guess,
Or even conflict issues?
yeah, I'm the type of person, well now, since I got older, I believe in protecting my peace at all costs, even if that means like taking someone out of my life. I think now I do it like, okay. Now I do it like it's second nature. Like if you're bringing me to a place where I don't want to be, or if like you're gonna mess with my anxiety or my depression or anything like that, then I'm good for like just cutting people off without even saying anything.
Mhm.
It's closure for me, but I guess it's not closure for other people.
Right.
I just found that that's easier for me to do than to keep dealing with somebody who's not bringing any type of peace into my life.
Hmm. Anybody else? Go. Go. Rena, did we hear from you?
I think we heard from her about her aunt, but we lost her.
I think so. I don't see her. I know she was driving.
Yeah. Well, plus it's an emotional one too.
Yeah,
and
it
so
is.
fresh.
Yeah,
It's
I
in-
was kind of a little bit, you know, like I was like, what am I going to talk about? You know, it's all new to me, you know, and so I was like, well, I had a lot of things to say about it, and I know it's emotional, and but you know, what about Darlene? Did you have anything?
No, I
No.
don't. No. No. Yeah, no.
Okay. What about like any anxiety or stress towards what we have talked about, like how did you cope, like with your anxiety, stress, knowing that someone had passed away?
Well, it's kind of hard. I don't want to like sound heartless, but like my grandparents had passed away a couple of years ago. And I wasn't really close to them. I mean, it did hurt because they were my grandparents and I cried, but I've only seen my grandparents like 5 times out of my whole entire life.
Mm-hmm.
So when they passed away, like I didn't know how to react because I didn't have that strong connection that I would have with normal, like with grandparents that would be with, those grandparents that would pick you up and go travel and do things with you. But I just know that if like it does come a time that when that happens, someone very close to me, to trust in God and to know that I don't know his plan. And I just put all my trust in him, and he has a plan for everyone's lives. And if it looks different for me, and it's just to trust in God.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where the way I would cope with it is just surrendering myself to God and not worrying, and that he would give me peace for
Right.
that. So that's the way I would cope with it.
Anybody else? What are your thoughts?
Robin, can you let Rihanna back in, please?
Oh,
she left.
did she leave? Yeah, I see her.
Here she is. I mean, kind of going off of Darlene's kind of thing, I felt that way growing up a lot. Like I was never really close to people. I cried more when like my dog passed away than I did when like one of my grandmas passed away, because I never was that close.
Mm-hmm.
And it kind of, but I mean, it sounds kind of morbid. I was around a lot of death growing up, like a lot of people like in like the family did pass away, but I was never at an age to really understand it. But I've always been kind of I don't know, like I just kind of like to like observe people. So I'm like, well, what are these people doing? Like stuff like that. And I think it's helped me with coping with those kind of things, like saying goodbye to people when it's unexpectedly, when it's unexpected, or when it is, as far as like, even if I don't get to say goodbye, like how to find that peace within myself or work through it.
Right. Anybody else?
Could you ask the question again? Because I was kicked off into the
The
internet.
question is, how do you, is there like, how do you how did you cope with the loss of a loved one, with dealing with stress and anxiety?
I would say that the way that I coped through it with my aunt, knowing that she had like a whole bunch of different like medical issues and that she was constantly in pain, knowing that she's no longer in pain anymore, and that I'm a believer in Christ. So in my faith, like I believe that she's like in heaven, like with God, my Father, like having no pain and like worshiping and having a joyful life. So that brings comfort to me and takes that stress away, versus if knowing that my aunt wasn't a believer in Christ, that probably would have caused me stress, like knowing that she wouldn't be in heaven.
Yeah, I agree with you. I at first, when my mom passed away, well, before she did, when she knew that she was going to, she was praying a lot. to God and telling God, please take me home, and I was like, Mom, you're already home. And she would say, no, the other home, I'm suffering. And I know when I go up in heaven that I'm going to be whole again and I'm not going to suffer anymore. And so and then the next day when she did, I realized, I think God answered her prayers. That was because she was suffering with the illness that was killing her slowly. Um, and now I realize that she is where she is, and she's with her mom and dad up there, and that she's whole now and she's not suffering anymore. Anybody else?
I do. It also makes me realize to be grateful, like when losing a loved one, and just to know that we're not going to be on this like earth forever.
Mm-hmm.
And it really does humble me onto being more grateful for life. And because I am the person that if I get in an argument, I want not to solve it right away, if depending on the other person, how they are, like how they cope with conflict. But I'm a person that doesn't like to go to sleep angry, because we don't know if we're gonna wake up tomorrow, and I really don't want to have my last words or something to be that we said
Hurtful.
something negative to each other, and that would be the last time that I said that to them.
Right.
So I'm losing loved ones makes me humble myself even more, because it's just a reminder that this is not our forever home, and we weren't meant to be on this earth forever, and just to enjoy life the way that God wanted us to, and to keep going forward.
Mm-hmm. That's just like what happened when my one of my sisters had done something or said something, and my mom had a hard time. See, she and I were adopted by two different families, and so my mom couldn't forgive her for the longest time um, for what she had done. And I said, Mom, I mean, we're all not going to be here forever. You need to forgive her. You need to let it go and just forgive her, because you never know what could happen. You may not forgive her, and then something happens, you won't be here or she won't be here, and then you'll regret it, or something. And closer to the time that she knew she was going to go, she ended up forgiving my sister, and my sister and her, got together before the one last time, and they hugged and they started talking and stuff, and then they forgave one another, and that really made me happy. I wasn't so stressed out anymore, not knowing what's going to happen, if she never forgave my sister. So it is good to forgive someone, and not just keep building it up, keeping it inside, and um, even though it's kind of hard to not forgive someone uh, during certain circumstances. So anybody else have anything? Erica, you're on mute.
It told me that time. It told me. Even the computer's done with me. Um, that's something I struggle with, I think, because I'm a lot like Chantel. Like, if someone, or at least I'm starting to become that person, if someone is just, obstructing my peace, and I'm the type of person, like, I go above and beyond. Like, I try my best. Let's work this out. But if nothing ever changes, then I find it hard to just continue with those people. Because right now, I am struggling with that with my mom and my sister. And it's like, I love them, and I would hate for, like, you know, it's a short life that we live. You never know. Like, if we wake up tomorrow, I struggle with that. Like, I want to have a good relationship, but if I'm the only one putting in that, then like I do kind of just want to go my separate ways, like forgive them for my own peace, but kind of like keep my distance, if that makes sense.
Hmm. Yeah. I'm dealing with the same thing. I'm distant with most of my family, especially my aunt. She and I don't see eye to eye on anything. I guess it's called uh, hard headed. Getting two hard head people together, it's kind of hard to get along with each other. So we pretty much both um, keep our distances, but sometimes we, just for my kids' sake, because my kids really love her and they miss her. So, like yesterday, they wanted me to walk them all the way clear across the other neighborhood to go see her, and so we showed up unexpectedly. And it was a pretty good visit. I mean, we didn't really talk much, but they got to see their aunt, and I try to keep it cool when they're around. We both try to keep it cool so we're not arguing or fighting with them around, because it's hard. I mean, my kids don't like to see anybody fight. So we just basically keep our distances, other than if the kids want to see her, then I allow that. So anybody else?
So I've had a similar situation like Erica, but with my husband's family. Kind of like being toxic, not really good for our like mental health and marriage. But like forgiving. So like I really like been through this journey, but like forgiving them, like I forgive them, but doesn't mean that forgiving them I have to let them like back into my life. Well, like, so I know my husband, like we're not gonna like not see my husband's family ever. Because when we have kids, I know that his parents are gonna be in our lives, but it's just creating like a healthy boundary. And now that's really worked out for us. There's sometimes that we can see each other once a year, and that once a year, like if it's meant, you know, if everything goes well, and we'll see each other once a year, and if not, they like, we have like made peace with them. But if they want to reach out to us and just like, hey, you know, how you guys doing? We definitely check in. And that seems to work for us instead of just like cutting them out completely. Because some people, I don't get me wrong, like you definitely do cut out completely. But I feel like in our case, like I wouldn't be able to do that because you know, like I mentioned, like we're gonna have kids one day, and I want my kids to be a part of their life. But if they're not gonna be good for my kids, then that's when I will draw the line and tell them, hey, I really do want you to be in our lives, but you can't be negative. You can't be constantly doing other things that are not okay.
Mm-hmm.
And setting that healthy boundary and allowing them to be in our lives. But if they don't want to do that, then that's fine. We'll love from a distance. And so that's what we have came to agreement about.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, and it works out for us. But I do agree, cutting, even if it's family, cutting people out that are toxic and not good for your mental health. You got to do what you need to do to make yourself happy and your family, because if you're not happy, your family's not happy, your kids are not happy. But just still coming to like a mutual agreement on, hey, you know, if we can come over. I think it's just better for us not to see them continuously. Like they live far from us, which kind of helps. But if they live close, then that's when we kind of draw that line. Like, hey, we can see you like once a month or once every 3 months or whatever it might be. But just creating that healthy boundary, and that's what we've learned. Because I held a grudge for quite a while, and it was making me unhappy. So I didn't want that, because there was just no peace at my heart. And so like I forgave them, but this is what I tell a lot of my friends. Like I do forgive my in-laws, but doesn't mean that my forgiveness means that they can push me the way they want to. It's not.
Like was, yeah.
That, yeah, and go back to where it was. Like I forgive them, but if they're going to continue hurting me, continue hurting my husband and I, then that's where I draw the line. It's like, okay, if you really want us to see in your life, you need to change these ways. And if you can't do that, then we're a phone call away or a text message away. And that's what we've learned in that part. But
Or they like to tend to control. Like my aunt,
well,
she likes to control me and try to control of how I raise my kids and kind of interfere. You know, when I'm like, I'm the
mhm,
parent, I'm the one that is supposed to be raising my kids the way I want to, and not have someone else try to
mhm,
control me that way. And she always brings, like, when my kids are around and I have them see my aunt, I say something and then she ends up saying something, oh, well, you know, and then she turns it into from a positive way into a negative, and it's like she's
mhm.
kind of like barking at me, you know, for no reason.
Yeah,
And
she's
it's like,
judging you.
well,
Mhm.
you know, you want to see my kids, but I don't really want my kids to hear that negative attitude, you know. So it's kind of hard when you try to make a mutual agreement and they want to turn something into like a negative all the time and not have a positive way of thinking.
Yeah, well, I guess the way they were controlling, they really wanted to control like my husband and like finances and stuff, and like in the, well, I don't know, in many cultures, but in the Hispanic culture, like I feel like sometimes the mom thinks that you owe them everything, which is I respect. Um, I respect that, but to a certain extent, because they just wanted to control, and then they would judge our relationship. They were like, everything that we did was wrong, no matter how hard we tried. And the thing is that it kind of would get into our relationship because, like, it's just constant judging and stuff. And I told my husband, if you like, you know, can't stand up to your mom, because I'm not going to be disrespectful. I'm not going to be like, hey, you need, you know, you need to shut your mouth or anything like that. But like, because this is your mom. This is like, I think it's just like a family thing going on. So I think it was in my situation, it was my husband's job to be like, mom, you know what? This like constant judging, this constant nagging, this constant like everything that's going on, like you need to put a pause to it. But because there's more, like there's childhood trauma as well. So there's just a lot of factors involved. But so we did, and we did it together, and agreed on like those healthy boundaries, and not, you know, I mean, even though she lives an hour away, we'll see her. I mean, I haven't seen her since 2 years ago. And I mean, not that I don't want to, like we've tried, but she's always put this like, it's our fault, or only it's my fault because I married her son. And since I married her son, like I can't see him anymore. He doesn't pay attention to me, which is not the case, but she's very manipulative. And so, and I'm a person that's very like, I speak what's on my mind. And so I noticed that because that's what happened to my parents with their parents, that their parents were very manipulative, which is not okay. But just creating, like I said, that healthy boundary and do what's best for you and your family. And if they don't like that, then the door's right there. Because if they really want to be a part of your life and they really do love you, then they would be able to make that change for you to
Right.
be able to have you back in their lives. So that's the way I see it.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's why, I mean, we're happy, but I really do, like, sometimes I used to crave that, like, I wanted that relationship from my mother-in-law, because I wanted to, you know, I wanted my husband to be, I just wanted to be a happy family, but I've noticed, like, that doesn't always happen, and it's okay not to. I mean, it's okay that she doesn't like me or whatever the case might be.
Mm-hmm.
I'm okay with it because I know my husband's happy, I'm happy. The day we have kids, I'm going to show them to create healthy boundaries, even if it's family, if it's friends, if it's coworkers, like whatever it might be, that I would be able to teach them to not be pushed around no matter how they manipulate you, if it's family, like, because I've always heard that, like, in his family, like, well, family's family no matter what they do to you, which is true. They are still going to be your family no matter what, but doesn't mean that they can make you feel like you're unwanted, make you feel like you're not worthy, make you feel like you're doing something wrong, which you're not the person that's doing something wrong, because that's not family. So yeah, I probably can go on for days for that, but that's my that's my take.
Mama.
Okay. Anybody else, their thoughts on, what we've been talking about?
Mama. Mom.
Chantel?
Mama.
No?
Mom.
So I guess I agree with Darlene with everything she said. Before actually the day before me and my husband got married, at our what is that? The dinner before our wedding or whatever, me and one of his aunts got into a really bad argument where I told her not to show up to my wedding at all. And she like my mother-in-law ended up taking her back to the train station and making her go home so she couldn't even come. But after that, it was just like she tried to apologize, but I've been so traumatized by my own like my own life. Like I've always had people just disrespect me for no reason, or I've always been put in a position where
Baby cake.
I've been put in like really bad positions where I'm like good at just like I just don't need that type of negativity. So she tried to apologize, but I guess I just wasn't hearing it. And it's just one of those like I love her. That's my one of my in-laws, but I just have to love her from a distance. Like I don't want anything to do with her or anything. And honestly, I think it's just better that way. Like just better for me in general. And now that I have my own child, like I just don't want someone who's going to be negative towards me to be in his life, and then he's witnessing someone be negative to me for not like, and I don't know how to describe it, but yeah.
Marco? Any thoughts?
Thoughts on what was said, or what was the initial question?
What's that baby cake?
Of,
Baby cake.
now I can't remember. Does anybody else remember the initial question? We got talking about when it like dealing with like saying goodbye to someone that has been I guess like a loved one or a friend, dealing with conflict issues, I guess. How are you coping with dealing with the anxiety issue or stress when you have a loved one that you have to say goodbye because of conflict issues, or, I guess that's the question.
For coping with the loss. For the past few losses, I found that just my coping method was usually just kind of like shut myself away from everybody. Then I do it my way of just kind of processing it and seeing how I can go about it. And not just because in that process, I don't just think about myself. I think about the people that were also impacted, and then to see how I can help them. So like my buddy, a few years ago, he passed away from leukemia, and he was like the breadwinner of the house. So then after figuring it out for myself, I tried to see like how I can help the family and just let them know that I'm there for them. So usually
do you still stay in contact with the family?
yeah. Well, now I moved because I was in Florida. So, but they still reach out to me. They have my phone number, so if anything happens. And then I also have other buddies that just pass by every once in a while to see if they're okay, if they need anything.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's good. That's good that you still keep in somewhat contact with them and they check up on you.
Yeah.
What about you, Rena?
I would say that I kind of say it like with similar to Chantel, where and other people have too, where they mentioned where the other person does not like respect them, or they don't like something about them, so they draw that like boundary because they know that it needs to be in place. Like I have that with my biological father. He's always, I guess, like he's always been an alcoholic and into drugs. And when I was pregnant at 17, he did some very shady things where I was no longer able to, like, I had to make the decision to no longer live with him and fly back to Arizona because I was in Ohio. And I made the decision to not have contact with him until he made the decision to sober up and go to rehab, and he never did. And you know, I just had to come to the terms with it's okay not having a father figure in my life. I'd rather have no father figure than have a very crappy father figure, you know, just being more of a burden or causing more emotional like abuse on me. So I drew that line, and I haven't had contact with him, like really, just my brother has had, but like I'll see him occasionally, like once in a blue moon, maybe like once every 3 years, like at a family event, and I'll be cordial with him, but I don't want anything to do with him.
Did you say this is your father or?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's kind of hard. I mean, I know probably when you guys were kids, you guys were real close, and that's kind of hard to deal with that, you know, right now.
I thought it was actually pretty easy because he's never been a present father. He's always been absent. Like physically he was there, but mentally, emotionally and all that, he was not there.
He wasn't there.
So it was easy making that boundary.
Yeah. I have a similar thing with my sister. She has this husband that he drinks a lot. I mean, he works like 16, 17 hours a day because he's a farmer. And when he comes home, all he wants to do is drink. And when he drinks, I mean, he, you know, he's just not himself. And now she came to realize that she's saying goodbye to him and moving on, and because she can't deal with the mental abuse. She has dealt with it for the last 9 years, and she's left him before, but it was only like a week. And now she realized, you know what, he's not going to change. He's not going to get help. He would say, well, I want to go through family counseling, you know, therapy. And then she would go back with him, and he doesn't do the family therapy. And then he's the same way. And so now she just come to realize, you know what, I can't live like this. So she found an apartment. I helped her, and she's moving in her new apartment, and she got a job. So I think she's happier because she's not dealing with that mental abuse. But at first it was hard to say goodbye to him because she's been with him so long. So, and I want to talk about goals, how we can set goals. Like, stop. Sorry, my daughter is bothering me. What goals do you think we could work on, you know, of how we can help ourselves saying goodbye to someone that we love, or even a friend? What goals do you think we should work on? Erica.
Kind of going off what I had talked about before, I think a good goal, at least for myself, would be to learn to not necessarily say goodbye, kind of like I guess kind of, but like Darlene mentioned, like set those boundaries. Like I'm trying to set those boundaries, just remind myself that even though they're kind of gaslighting me for setting these boundaries, that it's okay to do that, as well as maybe being better about it with like saying goodbye to like toxic friends maybe, because with my family, I would say I have this really weird obligation and I will like try everything and go above and beyond, try and work something out. With friends, if you screw me over, then that's it. That's done. Like I don't ever talk to you again.
Hmm.
So I'm like the opposite in both directions.
Anybody else like Rena, Marco?
I would second that. It's hard when you're in like toxic relationships. Like I guess like breaking those like habits or like patterns. Like yeah, maybe you might say like goodbye for like momentarily, but then when that person like comes and you know is like apologizing or saying that they've changed, and I guess you just, for me, I want to like believe that person and give them that chance. But after a certain point, there needs to come like a stop, and because then you're just further causing more pain on yourself.
Yeah,
So I guess sticking to it.
I agree with that. You know, sometimes I have a hard time accepting, like, even if I had a best friend for like a long time, accepting, like, if, like, I did have a friend that I went to high school with, and we stayed friends all these years, but then the past 5 years we haven't talked to each other or anything like that. And I've tried to message her, but she hasn't really messaged back. And so it's just like, okay, well, I don't know what I did. Did I do something wrong? You know, is she busy? So I just take it to say that, well, maybe she just doesn't want to be friends anymore. So it was kind of hard for me to accept that. And now I realize, you know what, I have other friends, I have family, you know, maybe she'll come around someday. So that's, and my goal is to, I want to, you know, accept the fact that if I do say goodbye, that it would be easier for me than what it has been. I mean, I kind of get very emotional if I have to say goodbye to a loved one, or whether it is someone dying or someone, you know, like during conflict issues, like with my aunt, I still think about it and I still get very emotional when I think about it. And so it's hard for me to not think about it. So I don't know, I don't really have a goal yet, so of how to deal with that. What about you, Marco? I know you were raising your hand.
What was the question? I forgot right now.
What is how would you like, what are the goals that you want to set for yourself in saying goodbye to a loved one, or saying goodbye to like any conflict issues? If you had like a best friend that you're friends with for a while, and then during any kind of conflicts, how would you deal with that, or how would you set your goal to cope with it?
Yeah, regarding that, the goal, I was thinking before something like the exposure therapy or
Mm-hmm.
systemic desensitization, where you kind of expose yourself to things like that, not like going where people are dying so you can, but like something in that way where you're exposed more with it, so you learn a healthier way to approach it, because sometimes these things are a big deal. And even though you might go about it the right way, or you think you're going about it the right way, it could like come back at you years later and you're like, man, I could have like done that goodbye so much better and this and that. So
Right.
if there could be some kind of exposure method, that's like I'd like to see a way or like an objective of what's the right way for a person, so that you kind of get yourself introduced to those things, so that when it happens, you can say goodbye the right way that
Hmm.
will put you at peace, you know, for whatever it is, whether it's, you know, not communicating with friends or family anymore, or if somebody's passing.
Mhm.
So I think that's like a objective that I would like to go about.
And this will also prepare you for when it happens too, of how you know how to say goodbye, and not just like what you were saying years later. You're like, oh, I wish I could have done that, or I wish I could have, changed what I was, like with the saying goodbye to someone. Um, I think preparing ourselves. I know we're not always prepared because you never know if someone's gonna like your loved one is gonna die the next day. You never know. I mean, the only person that knows is God. So we can't really be prepared for that. But I think also therapy, certain kinds of therapy would help too, to set our goals on how to say goodbye to someone. Stop. Chantel.
I guess my goal, I guess, like when it comes to conflict, being the reason to say goodbye, I think us being able to have difficult conversations would be the goal. The only thing is when you're dealing with someone else who's not ready to have those difficult conversations, that becomes kind of hard to do. So I guess just being able to take it one day at a time, especially like when it comes to grieving or like, oh, I miss that person. Um, yeah, it just they're not there for whatever reason they're not there for, whether it be like death or um, them just not being an asset to your life. So I think just taking it one day at a time is
Hmm.
beneficial.
I agree with that. Taking it one day at a time. Erica.
I forgot exactly what Chantel exactly said, but yeah, taking it um, one day at a time, I think is good because every situation is different. And then I think goodbyes are more of a like personal thing, at least in my case. I think especially when a person's like passing away, like it's good to know like you love them and say goodbye. That way they can go peacefully, but it's also good to know, you said your piece. And then when it comes to like having those tough conversations with people who aren't ready, like if they aren't ready but you still have to say goodbye, at least like I said my piece, or I'm doing it for my personal health, my mental health.
Hmm. What about you, Darlene?
I guess the goal that would be for mine is just continuing um, setting those like healthy boundaries, but also I feel like, well, like in my case, like I feel like when you do something that's good for you, you kind of feel guilty about it. Like when I felt guilty about like cutting out my in-laws out of my life, but to just remind myself that it does take a lot of courage to stand up to toxic members of the family or toxic whoever it might be, and to, how do I say, praise yourself and just knowing that you're doing it just for you, and I guess I think that would be a goal. but also like if we lost a loved one, like we, you know, they pass away, just continuing to trust God, even though it might not look like the way that I thought it would be, but just to continuing to trust God and know His plan for my life and my husband's.
Mhm. I don't know what else to ask. um, uh, Maybe someone could help me. I don't know what else to ask. This is 2 hours.
I think it's easier being okay with coming to the conclusion of like saying goodbye when it's like a death, but I think it's harder though, like when it's like when you're dating, or like when it's like a friendship, when the other person is wanting to walk out of your life and you're not having that closure. Because I think a lot of times we seek that closure, like to have that understanding, like what went wrong, and when the other person doesn't give you that, then that's when it gives you like the unease, and you're like constantly like racking your brain. Like I know I will like play like different scenarios and like read into things that like might not even like be it, like, you know, go through each word that they said. So I just know that it's harder to do that, and I'd be interested in knowing like ways to like, I guess, not overthink it or just letting it go.
I felt like that too when I was married for 13 years, and I decided, you know, that, see, we had some conflict issues in our relationship, and I realized like after 13 years that it wasn't gonna like change, and it was hard to say goodbye and have a closure, not knowing that, well, knowing that I was going to be on my own. And I lived with, you know, like I had gotten married when I was 23, and I just left from, you know, staying with my mom, living with her into like marriage. And so I never really was on my own. And so I think it was hard for me to say goodbye because I didn't know how I was going to cope with living on my own, you know? And I still think about my ex-husband, since it's been years ago, and saying, well, I wish I could have, I thought it was like my fault, but it was actually, it was both parties, you know? And I wish that things were better, that I always think about, well, what could have happened if we were still together, or where would we be today if we were still together? I still think about that, and I still have not had any closure with it. And so for me, it's kind of hard to not think about it. And I still think about it, even though I've moved on and I have my kids, you know, and stuff like that. I still think about it. So, and I haven't had any therapy about it, you know, like going and talking to someone. My mom always told me that maybe you should go see somebody, you know, to help you deal with the closure. And I just haven't done it yet. So I don't, anybody have any thoughts of, I just, it's kind of hard for me to, you know, done with
I
it.
have something, but I think it's kind of close to Brianna's situation. My husband's father is an alcoholic, and he used to do drugs, but my husband, when he was a child, his father used to do a lot of drugs and was like there, but not there. And so my husband and I have been together for 6 years, and he would constantly, like Raina said, you play the scenario, what if I would have done this differently when I was younger? what about if I would have stopped my dad, by, because my husband had lots of people in his house because they were drug users, and his dad would let a lot of people in the home.
Mhm.
And so my husband constantly, like, long story short, for the way he had to find closure, and he just found closure about a week ago, was confronting his father and asking him, like, why, like, help me understand why you did these things. Like, help me understand why you abandoned me and I, like, would go starve in the streets and nobody would take care of me. Like, why did you do those things? And kind of like that's like confrontation, but it was really uncomfortable. But I knew it was something that my husband had to do because he wanted to know why his father did things he did in his years, or why he continues to be an alcoholic and choosing alcohol over his family. And for him, that's the way he found closure, is sitting down and having that really awkward conversation with his father. And his father didn't have words and really didn't say much, but for my husband, letting those emotions out and actually, like, getting those words out on why you did those things, or why did you, like, that was closure for him. Because I knew that was, like, a lot of the conflict was because my father-in-law wanted to come over, and he is one of those old school, like, the women do everything and the men, need to sit down, and that really didn't fly with me. And so and then he would just, like, drink, and he'll get to the point to, like, where he couldn't control himself. And so my husband, like, really didn't say anything because he wanted to have that father-son relationship there. So he didn't want to say anything to his father, to hurt his father, or to have him keep coming. But I had, like, a serious talk with my husband on, the more you let him in, the more the damage he's doing damage to you, because you get upset because he's drinking. You get upset because he's doing the things that are triggering you from what he did from the past. And so those were really trigger points for my husband, because then he would get sad, and then he would be like, why isn't my father a normal dad? Why isn't my dad one of those dads that are there for, their kids? And kind of just sitting down, and for my husband sitting down, or even if it was over the phone, telling dad, you know what, I need to get something off my chest, and I need you to listen to what I'm about to say. And that worked for my husband, having that closure of, this is the way I felt, and I've kept it bottled up all these years because he always wanted to please my father-in-law. Same with his mother. And so I just thank God, like, for the heart that my husband has, because he's very forgiving. Because I forgive, but, like, the things that my husband went through with his parents were very traumatic. But that was the way he found closure, is through confronting his dad and his mom, stating the way he felt, and finding peace in his heart. Like, for us, it was going to church and finding, even though he didn't have his biological father here, like, he found his spiritual father that's in heaven, and knew that, like, God wasn't going to disappoint him, because that's his father as well. And so just finding that peace. And then we just went to go to church, and my husband's been better than ever. And it also gives you this kind of confidence of, I kind of, like, gave him confidence, as in, like, if there's confrontation in the family, he'll speak his mind, even if it hurts the other members. Because remember, like, his mom would say, like, oh, don't tell me anything about the past, because I'm gonna get a heart attack. In which it wasn't the case. Like, his mom didn't have heart problems, but she would manipulate him into the confrontation of, like, oh, don't argue with me because I'm gonna have a heart attack, and if something happens to me, it's your fault. So he would never find confrontation with his mother, because she would always kind of manipulate him in that way when he wanted closure.
Because she didn't want to talk about it or anything like that, or listen to
No,
it.
she did everything right. It was his mom doesn't find anything that she did anything wrong. And so, because his mom's remarried to a stepfather, which kind of is, like, a whole nother story. But so I think just my husband's situation was finding that confidence and confronting the situation of, like, I guess, exposing himself to that uncomfortable situation of, this is the way I'm feeling, and I want to know, like, I want answers. And if even though he didn't get answers to all of his questions, he got his feelings out there, and the way he felt about it is out there. And that gave him closure, a lot of closure.
That's happened to my 12-year-old son. My kids' dad is in and out of their lives like constantly. He disappears and then he comes back, and want to see them. My son now, since he's 12 years old, he has, he's just, he'll tell you what's on his mind. If he has something to say, he'll tell you, even if it's gonna like hurt someone's feelings or whatever. Sometimes I have to like say, oh, you don't need to be saying that. Oh, no, you don't need to be doing that. You need to watch it, but he's like, well, I got to let him know how I feel. Because if he doesn't know how I feel, then he's not gonna change. And maybe if he felt how I felt, then he would come around more, like that. And when they were younger, or when he was younger, he always asked me, why isn't dad, coming around? Is it my fault, or did I do something wrong? And I have to sit down and explain to him. And now since he's 12 years old, he just speaks his mind and says whatever is on his mind. And that's how he has closure, is because he knows that he will just say what's on his mind, and then possibly knowing that his dad will come around more, in which he has been coming around more since my son has spoken up to him. So that's a way of his closure too. Even though I sometimes interfere and say, no, don't say that. You might make him mad, you might turn him away, but it hasn't yet. So anybody else, with their any thoughts? Anybody had a hard time having dealing with closure on certain things like what we have been talking about?
I go.
Chantel?
I guess the only time I have issues with closure, or maybe I just have issues and I just don't deal with them at all or think about it. But I guess one time where I actually had issues with closure was right after high school. When I started college, my best friend just stopped talking to me out of nowhere, and it's like I never really understood why, and I still to this day don't understand why. Like, we just stopped talking out of nowhere. It just seemed like the effort, like she was supposed to go to a school, but they thought that she cheated on her ACT, so she never got to go. They kicked her out after she moved in. And I was in school, and it's like after they made her leave school, that's when like our relationship kind of got strained, because it was like I was the only one reaching out. So I guess that's like the one thing like I still don't really have closure with, and it's been like 9 years now. Actually 10 years this year. But yeah, it's kind of difficult when you don't when you don't get it because of something you just don't really understand.
She was probably embarrassed. Like on her end, like to have others like thinking about like that she cheated and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe it was her way of coping through it, of pushing everybody away.
Well, and
Yeah,
she
that's
was
kind of like what I think, but it's the like her not even be able to say that even years later after we've seen each other multiple times.
well, and it seems like maybe she was maybe a little jealous because she wanted to go to school and she couldn't, and you did. And I went through a couple of situations like that. My best friend and I were talking now, but it's like, it's not the same, because she would be like, out of nowhere, she was just like, you've always been an awful friend and yada, yada. And it made me just question like every conversation we ever had. And then for her to come back years later and be like, it wasn't you that was the awful friend. It was me. That's the awful friend. And I had the things. that I had to work on. So just try and remind yourself, like, sometimes it isn't you and it's just something that they have to work through. And you gotta give them space if that's what they need. If not, just hit her up and say, hey, what ever happened between us? Like, I miss you. I mean, I used to not be the person that would like go and do that. Like, I'd be like, well, if you don't want to talk to me, I'll talk to them. But I did start missing people. So I reached out and I said, hey, I miss you. Like, whatever happened between us, like, let's work this out, or at least, you know, get the closure. So
Yeah, I'm gonna try that. I haven't done that because I'm like, I try to avoid confrontation.
it's hard.
Yeah, but it's kind of hard when like you go from doing something with somebody every single day to like not talking or doing anything at all. Like I don't even have her number in my phone anymore. So it's kind of like it's just difficult.
Yeah.
It reminds me of I don't know if you guys like seen like, well, they made it into like a little meme or a little video that will like pop up on YouTube or on Facebook of like Medea when she's giving like the advice to Ben, turn that down. To I don't know if it's her grandson or her son, you know, he's like heartbroken or whatnot, and she's explaining it like this tree diagram, like, you know, where some people are like the branches, the leaves, like different stages, like people may come and go, and to be like okay with it. Like I had too, like a high school best friend where we were like inseparable, and then after high school, obviously I had my son, but she went into like the partying life, so like our paths like separated, and it was hard, like, you know, being okay with that. And like years down the road, like she ended up getting sober, but we tried to rekindle like our friendship, and it was just like not the same. And I guess like at that point you have to be okay with knowing that like you can still love the person, but being okay that you won't have like that relationship that you used to have.
I have dealt with a bunch of that, like all my high school friends. It's just like, it seems like we were real good friends, but then all of a sudden after high school, we go our separate ways, and then we stop being friends. But then years later, I found all of them on Facebook. And then now we're friends again. I mean, we haven't, you know, talked for years, and then all of a sudden we find each other on Facebook, and now we're talking. So it's amazing how you can find all your friends from years before on Facebook and on the media, you know.
Oh, I blocked all them.
Okay.
I like
I
everybody from
did a
high
purge.
school trying to talk to you, and I'm like, no.
Oh, really?
I did a purge
Yeah.
and got rid of everybody.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not like super into like that Facebook thing. Like
I'm on
I probably
Facebook all the
only
time.
use, like, I use like probably Instagram more, and it's usually for shopping, not talking to people. But yeah, everybody from high school, I'm like, no. Especially like the people that like I was bullied like all through like middle school to like high school. And it's like I have like the people that were bullying me trying to friend request me, and I'm like, not gonna happen.
And you're like, decline.
You.
yeah, it's like, why? Like we weren't friends. Why are you trying to?
Yeah.
Trying to still bully me now?
I haven't come across that yet. I mean, all of my high school friends were all friends on Facebook, so there might be one or two maybe pop up there once in a while. But it hasn't happened yet, so anybody else? I mean, Darlene, Marco.
I'll show you the book too. Why? Because we're not going to No, this.
What was the question again?
any thoughts of what we've been talking about, like, you know, like having friends from a long time ago, if you stayed friends with them now, or if you guys had, you know, said your goodbyes, you know, from when you went to high school and all of a sudden they disappear on you and you didn't know why, or
I guess I have no problem with that, because I'm like a firm believer. I probably sound really mean, but it's like if no one wants to, like, from my, I guess I had a best friend in high school that, I mean, we were inseparable. We were friends like all high school, middle school, and I became 18, came to graduate. I was going off to college, and she was not. And then she started saying like I was stuck up, that I thought that I was, you know, all that, which was not the case. I mean, it was just like, I think her form of like jealousy. I'm not sure what it was, but I'm very, I always had a motto, like if God had took them out of my lives, it was for a reason. And if she was going to be toxic to me in my life, then I prefer not talking to her. So, I mean, we're friends on Snapchat, but it wasn't, or Facebook, but we're not like what we used to be. So, I mean, it doesn't bother me, because it is what it is. I can't change the fact that she stopped talking to me, because I know that I did nothing on my part.
mhm.
So I know it's like, I don't remember who said it, but they're in a different stage of their life. And I'm in a different stage of mine. And if they ever want to reach out to me again, then I'm here. And if not, then if not, then they won't.
Mhm.
I think sometimes we have like the expectations though. Like I know when I was trying to reconnect with my best friend from high school, like I had like this expectation that, oh, you know, it's just gonna be like, you know, just like come together, which it wasn't. I guess it's like, you know, dating, like you still have to get to know that person because it's been several years, you know. They've probably had so many different events like happen in their life that, you know, have influenced what kind of person they are now and like the choices. So, and obviously we're not going to be the same kids that we were like in high school. Like we grow, and depending on that, like is who we are going to be. So we're not going to be the same as who we are, fortunately.
Mhm.
I agree. I think I have one friend that I can say, even though she was another one of my friends, and she was that loud, obnoxious friend that was just always funny, and I just loved having her by me. She's, I guess you could say, the only one that I like exactly what you say. Like when we talk over the phone, the few times that we talk, it's like we picked up where we left off in high school. Like she's still the funniest. I mean, she's a mother of 4 right now. And so like I know a lot in her life has changed. She's a mom now. She, you know, so much has changed, but and I haven't seen her in a long time, since we were 18. And I'm 26 now, but she's the only one that I can say that we've had our fights, but every single time we talk was we picked up when we left off. And I'm not sure why that is, because I was closer to my other friends, that we kind of don't talk to more anymore, because I met this friend that I'm talking about now. Like I met her my junior year, and the other one I had my almost all my life. And she is still, I mean, we still are in contact through social media and stuff, but I definitely know what you mean of like you wish it was like in high school how you were, but like you said, people change. What they went through changed, and because we don't know what they went through. They can probably have some hardships in their lives that we don't know of, and yeah, so I totally agree with you, Ariana.
How about you, Marco?
So the reconnecting part with the people. I've actually moved a lot. Like, all around the world since.
I can't hardly hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Okay, now I can.
Yeah, so I haven't really experienced that as much as you've all mentioned because I've been moving around since I was little, all around the world. So I don't really make deep bonds. So just all kind of like acquaintances. With the few friends that I do make, I kind of like stay with like I keep in contact with them every like 5 months, so 5 6 months. But other than that, it's just not really like one of those make a goodbye and then later how reconnect or anything like that. It's just people that I meet and communicate with, like they were a part of my life at that point, but then I don't have that kind of like a tie to them, even though maybe we hung out and everything.
Hmm.
I just learned that way how I was like from when I was little that there was no really point of making those deep connections because tomorrow you just might move to the US and then like a month later you go back to Germany or so it's just I don't really
Were you guys in the military? Is that why you moved around so much?
no it's just my dad lived here in the US and we mainly lived in Europe and it was just kind of going back and forth to
Mm.
be able to like know how to speak English and then go back over there for family because everybody lives back over there so
Oh,
it was
is
just
it
kind
just your dad and you in the U.S.?
of now it's my dad myself and my brother.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
bet you have vacations here and there going back to Europe.
I actually haven't been in about 8 years and I was supposed to go before everything happened and I bought a ticket and then they postponed it and then
Because
they
this
canceled that
pandemic
one.
stuff.
Yeah, they canceled like they kept postponing it like 5 times and each time they asked for more money and everything and then at the end they canceled everything and they kept the money.
Oh, wow.
They
Yeah.
kept your money?
Yeah, because they said right now everybody's asking for their money back, so they said it might take 2 3 years to get it back.
Oh, my God.
What?
That's
Yeah,
crazy.
so
No, wait. Where'd you get your plane ticket from?
it was on Expedia.
I never
So
heard of
are
that,
you-
that they wouldn't refund you the money or anything until later.
So I don't know when I'm
would they give you like a what's it called
a voucher.
a credit?
So yeah, they did, but there's a lot of limitations. Like you can't go here, can't go there. So it's just some specific places that they're okay with, and I don't need to go there right now. So
Mm,
That sucks. 2 to 3 years.
yeah.
we'll see. By that time, I'll graduate, and then I can go back home.
Hey. It'd be a nice little graduation present for yourself.
Yes,
Yeah, I'll
it
take
will
the
be.
round trip and make it a one-way first class and just stay over there.
One way.
But, yeah.
What would you would have to what like change? Like if you're gonna be a licensed therapist over there, is it like how would that work?
There's not like a lot of specific qualifications that they have over there. Pretty much what you have over here, it'll transfer over there, and it'll count for even more. So
Oh wow.
yeah, so I've even noticed that some of the school counselors that go here, they go over there, and then they're something like school psychologist, which is like a few steps more. Here, you need a PhD for that. Over there, you don't.
That's cool.
Yeah, so we'll see.
So, are you planning on doing like college counseling, elementary, middle school, high school?
High school, and then it was supposed to be college later, but then I just kind of like recently learned that a lot of counselors, it goes like teachers don't feel like being teachers anymore, so they're counselors, and then counselors when they don't feel like it anymore, they're principals of the school, and then I kind of like started reading into that, and that was a little interesting.
So, are there a
So-
lot of schools there that you have options like if you
Yeah,
were
because,
to go there?
A lot of them want their students to speak English, and having someone like already know
Okay, that's cool.
Yeah.
So you don't want to do therapy outside of school?
Not particularly. I used to want that, but I've noticed that it's competing with others in order to get your clients. And now there's so many people that do that. And first, my goal was marriage counseling, and then I did some volunteering and all of that. And then I noticed like so many clients. It's kind of like only who you get yourself, so it's a little hard. But working for schools, you have people to counsel. You have work.
Well, what I like, because I'm going to be a school counselor too, is that we're there for the people who may not have the insurance or who may not be able to afford the professional counseling.
Yeah.
And that's what I kind of liked about it too.
And helping kids that have no idea what they're doing.
Mhm.
So, yeah.
So, with everything that we've talked about, what do you think that this session would come out like? What changes do you think we need to set of all the stuff that we were talking about tonight?
But
Erica, I'm sorry.
She said after like everything we've talked about, like what do we feel like we're walking away with, kind of?
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to. Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
I didn't know how to voice it or how to ask that question. Thank you.
I would say definitely like reminding myself that healthy boundaries are okay, and it's okay to say goodbye to some people or love them from a distance, as well as taking my own advice and maybe reaching out to people who I didn't get the closure from, or they just stopped talking to me randomly. Because while we were talking about that, I was thinking about like an old friend. I'm like, yeah, whatever happened? Like, what happened? So I'm going to take my own advice and reach out to her.
Yeah. Chantel?
I have to think about it.
Okay. What about you, Rena?
I guess just being okay with things like ending, despite not having that, what's that word?
Closure?
Closure, yes. I couldn't think of it. Being okay that not having closure. I know that a lot of people seek it, but it's not always going to happen, especially when one person walks out of your life. So it's like you can't just voice like how you're feeling. So knowing that it's just okay that that person was just supposed to be a part of your life for a certain period, and just knowing, that God has something better for you.
Marco?
So the question was what we got out of it.
Yes.
It's just options. Like out of all of this, options of ways to think about it outside of your own perspective of
Are here, and one of them
how
said that he
you everything goes about it. So what Erica said of her way about approaching it and how she'll take her own advice and things like that. It's just kind of hearing the different perspectives of it and going about it is a big help rather than, listening only to what I think and thinking that's the best way. So it's pretty good to just think about it in different perspectives, hear about other things, and then also like even though you know other options and you yourself wouldn't go with those options because maybe you don't feel that they're right, but then hearing somebody's explanation of why it's good, it might change your course and help you overcome those challenges.
Darlene?
I agree with Marco about doing like what's best for you, because even though like you can listen to different ways of handling stressful situations, and if like, for example, you're not ready for the confrontation or ready to get that closure, if you are able to, from that person that you need to, just like kind of doing it in your way, and the way, in your time, in your way, and what's going to give you peace. And if just not talking about the situation and you already like that person no longer in your reach, or just having peace and knowing that, like Rihanna said, like God has a plan for you, and if they're not part of that plan that God has for you, then just knowing that God has your way already figured out, and yeah, just doing what's best for you and your family.
I agree. Me personally, I would take it one day at a time. Like if, like if I come across of, someone with, confrontations, I would just, what I would come of it with the closure is I would just sit back and just do what, like, agree with you, Darlene. Also, just, do what's right, what I feel, and have it in God's hands. If the person decides that they don't want to, they just want to walk away and not talk about it and not confront, you can't really do much of what the other person thinks. I have a lot of faith, that things were going to be okay. I mean, if they want to just walk away, just let them, you can't really do much, just do what you think what's best for you, Chantel, do you have any thoughts?
I guess you just said it. I was when it comes to situations like these, we really have to sit and do what's best for us. Because the other person did what they wanted to do, so now it's your turn to like get control of the situation. Yeah, even when it comes to closure, like you might not always get it, but closure can come from like doing other things. Like you don't necessarily have to like have that conversation with the person, but being honest with yourself, like maybe it wasn't something that I did, or it happened for a reason.
Mm-hmm. I agree. We still have like what, 15 minutes, 20 minutes?
So we're also entitled to like a 15-minute break.
Oh, we do.
Yeah.
Okay, good. I mean, this is all new to me too, so hopefully I did everything. I just ran out of stuff to ask. Anybody else have any other thoughts on anything that we've talked about?
I do. I think like we can change like the perspective of like saying goodbye to like individuals, and sometimes we have to say goodbye to like our jobs or like a career path.
No, I was thinking about that earlier, about the jobs too.
Mm-hmm. So I think it's like hard when you're, like I guess like with, COVID could be like an example where a whole bunch of people were like laid off of their jobs and having to come to those turns of this is ending and like seeing what is next.
Yeah.
That was definitely me. It was hard. Like I was like, never in my life did I think I would be laid off. So it took me, well, I didn't really like my job. It was kind of like the career path I wanted to go to. I just didn't like where I was at and my supervisor itself. but it was hard for me to be like, okay, this is where I'm at, this is happening. What do I do next? But after I realized, like I kind of changed my perspective on it, I was a lot happier. So, like, I'm like, okay, I'm going to take this as an opportunity, an opportunity to focus on school, especially with my practicum coming up, an opportunity to focus on myself and my health, um, and all that. So, but yeah, saying goodbye was hard, like, especially like my friends, because right now I can't see them as much. So,
Right. And it seems like everything is like online, like, um, like FaceTime or, Zoom or the other kind of apps, like with my son, he has therapy twice a week or once every 2 weeks. And it's always online, and they always want to do the FaceTime, where they can see that they actually see you, but they want to do it through the phone app, and it's like my phone glitches. So we were not able to see face to face, but able to talk on the phone. And it is kind of hard to do that. I mean, this whole virus thing has threw me for a loop, like being laid off.
I can imagine how hard it is, especially as far as like therapy goes, because body language says a lot.
Right.
I mean, that was what I hated about my job. So I was a student advisor. Like, I advised students coming back into the school on what they needed to do, but everything was online because they were like in different states than me. And then I got like one face-to-face over Skype meeting with them, and then it's like I would never like see them again. And I was like, that it's a step in the right direction, but it's not where I want to be.
Right.
And I know that I don't like online, and now everything's online. So
yeah. So hopefully it'll get better in time. So, I guess, so what we've talked about was, losing a loved one, knowing how to say goodbye to a loved one, knowing how to say goodbye to someone that, like with the confrontations, like with stuff going on with drama, like with family members and so forth. I think this was a different kind of session. Different. I mean, there was no tear, jerkers. So, which was really good. I think it turned out good. And then our goal is just taking it one day at a time, and have faith in God of where it's going to bring us, like with this pandemic thing too. And hopefully we can all get back to normal lives, with work and everything. I'm still laid off until the end of August. So other than that, anybody else have any other thoughts of what no?
I think if there were team names, ours would be one day at a time.
Yeah. So I don't have anything else to come up with.
No, I think I got a lot out of this meeting. I think it was good. Just to kind of, like Margot said, talk about it, get different perspectives on things. Because I can sit around all day and think I'm right and my way's like it's my way or the highway, but then seeing other people's perspectives on how they handle things, like Darlene, her situation kind of similar to mine, except it's my actual family. Kind of really helped give me a different perspective that I needed, and kind of reassure like what I am doing is okay, even though they try and gaslight me and think that I'm the crazy one. But I just have to keep reassuring myself.
Yeah. Same with me. I think we all had similar things, that we're all going through or went through in the past, and so anyway,
Are we shooting for the same time next week?
next week at 4 your guys' time and 6 my time, because I'm 2 hours. I think I'm 2 hours behind.
Who has next week? Is it me? I don't remember.
Oh,
I'm-
I do.
Can't remember.
I have.
I think Darlene has next
I think
week.
I'm after her. I think I'm after you, Darlene. I'm
Yeah,
sure.
I have next week, and next week would be it's 4 o'clock Arizona time.
Yeah.
And then that's what another thing I wanted to talk to you about, because I have like eating healthy and self-care, and so if everyone can like have a journal of what they do for self-care throughout the week and what would be different between them when they don't do self-care and when you don't eat healthy, or what you eat healthy, and kind of keep a journal on that.
Or just like
And
notes in my phone. I don't.
yeah,
Okay.
notes on your phone, anything, whatever works for you guys on kind of feeling the difference of when you give your time for self-care and when you don't, and how you feel throughout the day. So we'll be
So you're
talking
giving
about
us homework already?
yes.
So we're gonna have homework, I guess, for next week.
I like it
No.
though. It's something I need, especially because I'm trying to get, after like the 2 trips I just went on, I'm trying to get back on track. So good timing.
Yeah. Yeah, because I talked to the professor about like splitting the hour, because I wanted to do like an hour, give everybody homework, and then come back a different day, do an hour. But I thought it would just be easier to just do the 2 hours at once, because everybody's schedules are very different. So I told myself I'm gonna tell everybody a week in advance to
That's fine. That
To-
works.
That's fine.
kind of get a journal done. But
That'll work.
Okay.
So I guess we'll meet same time next Tuesday.
Okay. See you guys then.
All right.
Sounds
okay,
good.
bye.
Sounds good.
Bye.
All
You
right.
recorded it, right, Robin?
Yes, I did. It says it's recording, so
As it is.
I'm hoping.
Okay.
All right.
Sure.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.
Okay, bye.